Started recording. Okay, cool. Okay, thanks all of you for uh, joining this morning. Okay, and today actually is the first day of the batch, the 14th batch that we are going to begin. I'll share my screen and then we'll go through the content. Okay, so just confirm, one of you, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, cool. So just a quick intro. Most of you know me, but but still, just a very quick one. I'm a fellow member of the Institute of Cost and Management Accountant of India and also registered valuer. I started working on SAP in '97 when I joined General Motors. So General Motors at that time was a Fortune #1 company. And if I recall, its turnover was at that time $100 billion. But after that, few years later, there was some issues, and I think it came down in the ranking. But that was a very good learning experience for me to understand a global organization and also understand various processes, and especially in a system-driven environment. Uh, and then I joined, after that, I worked with Saw Wallace, IBM, Colgate Palmolive, Biotop Science, General Mills. That was the last organization I worked, and all through I worked in SAP, either as a power user or as a consultant, as a project manager, delivery manager. In my last job, I worked as a global delivery manager for data analytics and SAP. So in this role, I also managed a team uh, which was based out of India, UK, and USA. So that was very challenging experience, but also very interesting, where I could work with different cultures. So SAP just helped me to uh, progress my career from accounting to, taking me to different parts of the world and working with different cultures. So for me, SAP has been a big turnaround in my career, and it has given me a lot of opportunities. I'm sure many of you are also working on SAP, and I'm sure you might also be finding an enriching career. So I did my CMA, passed out in 1998, and then CFA. At that time, it was called ICFAI, and then I completed three certifications: CISA, CIA, and project management. I also did uh, executive MBA from UCLA, and the registered valuer exams I passed in very recently. I think 2019 January I passed out. And after that, I've also done a certification in data analytics from XLRI, which I have not put. But yeah, it has been a continuous journey of learning and upgrading ourselves, of myself, to cope up with the demand of the corporate world and also of the career growth. So anyone who asks me about career, that's what I tell him, that it's a continuous upgradation, a journey in which you'll have to continuously upgrade yourself. Okay. So now let's come to this program. Okay. So about SAP, how can we learn SAP better and faster? So that has been the focus, or the one very important parameter based on which I have thought of this program. My target audience is mostly working professionals. Of course, there are times when I also get uh, entry-level professionals in the program, like CMA, CAs who have just passed out or who are in the final year. They also have sometimes joined, and even MBAs have also joined this program. Uh, so with the domain knowledge that a finance professional have, I can leverage that domain knowledge to help the finance professional learn and experience SAP much faster. So that is one very important point, because uh, with less time, how can we learn things faster? So second is, how can we develop skills rather than just going through PowerPoint or just having an understanding? Because skill is what is most important. When you have to actually work on a application or on a system, you should know how to go, traverse through that system. So having a hands-on experience is very important, and that's what I built into this program. It's not enough that you pay me and you join this program. That's not going to give you, uh, skills. You'll have to practice. And with that purpose, I'm also providing 3 months of SAP access to S4 HANA 2021 version, which I will log into just now. So along with the after the class is over, I will immediately provide the recording, which will be with you for lifelong. So there is no limit of the number of months you can access it. You'll have to watch that video again and practice it. That's where you will develop your confidence in SAP. Okay? And think from business perspective. SAP is not just an accounting software. Accounting is a small part of SAP. It has to do with business. And when you talk about business, we talk about not just accounting, but how it is reaching out to its customer and how business is making money, right? So we have to think big, and we should not just narrow ourselves to tax में ये कैसे होगा या इसको. That is also of course part of our accounting life, but uh, when you have to learn SAP, we have to look. Then only we can bring about some transformation in the organization using SAP. Uh, just thinking from accounting perspective, perhaps the transformation would be very limited. And how can we run this kind of program effectively? Is that you attend all the sessions. Try to attend at least 80% of the sessions, if not 100%, because there may be something that may come your way, some deliverable requirement. So try to attend all the sessions, participate, uh, ask questions, practice, share your experiences from the system that you work. That is all going to uh, basically connect you with the program and also with SAP. And in this program, we will work a lot on errors, because in real life, we will come across a lot of errors in SAP. So instead of getting nervous with it, it's better to face it. And so when you go through 10, 12 errors every day in the program, you get more confidence, because by the time you complete, you may have seen hundreds of errors. So that ability to resolve the errors and the confidence you derive from resolving errors is actually a big deal. It just helps a lot in your developing SAP skills. So take it as a learning opportunity whenever you hit an error. Don't get nervous. So recordings will be available, and I'll also provide SAP access. So before I go further, let me just log into SAP. Some of you may not have perhaps seen the screen, so it's good to have something visual before you. So this is called SAP GUI, and it has got different connections. I got 4 different system on my GUI. If you are already working in SAP environment, possibly you already have a GUI installed, then you will need to create a connection, and others will need to install and then create a connection. When you create a connection, at a time, your server address will needs to be entered, okay, and then the password. So based on that, you will be able to log in. Okay, so this is the landing page. It says client 800, and client is something very important. Throughout this program, you'll be learning about the client. So just keep in mind, it's not that you will understand everything from day one. Please try to mute yourself if you're not asking questions. Uh, So this is the first page where you land once you log in. And this is the end user side or the power user side or anyone who works on SAP from a transaction perspective, they will always work on this side of the screen. So the other side of the screen is called configuration or IMG or SPRO. So I'll get into it. But let me just quickly navigate this for you. So you see this at the bottom right-hand side with S4 HANA 2021 version. Okay, so this is the latest one. I think there is a 2022 also come in the market, but this till now is the most latest one that we're working on. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the navigation screen, which is like expand and collapse kind of screen, and it's a node and subnodes. So we got accounting, human resource, and logistics. So we usually work within accounting and logistics. So within accounting, you see financial accounting and the controlling. So there are two areas where we are going to work in this program. So financial accounting has general ledger, accounts payable, receivable, and assets, and the banks. And the controlling has got 6 important sub-model: cost element, cost center, internal orders, product cost controlling, profitability analysis, and profit center accounting. We are going to go into each of them. May not be right away, but right now I'm just trying to give you a broad perspective. So at least something is there before your eyes, so that you can relate to whatever discussion I have today. So this is like a expandable, collapsible kind of a menu. You can expand and collapse it. Then SAP is accessed through T codes, and you can access the T codes in 2 ways. One is if you keep on expanding this. So this actually is a very beautiful way in which SAP has designed the user experience. Most of the time we work on certain transactions. So that transaction is at the top. So document entry is at the top, then followed by document that you want to see, the account, master records is lesser used compared to these three. Periodic processing is used monthly, then the reporting, info system, environment, statistical figures. So if you expand this document entry, then here's the T code. FB50 is to enter a GL account document. Okay, so you can double click on this, and then it will open up a screen. The other option is that you click on, I'll take you to another screen. So when you click on this new GUI window, it will open up another screen. So I can open up number of different screens. Now I will type here FB50, so which is the T code, and this is the execution box. I will press enter, and then it will bring up the same screen. So there are 2 ways in which you can access SAP transaction screens. And when you want to go out, you can try to cancel this and you can go out. The other way is you can do a /n. When you do a /n, it will go back to the landing screen. Okay. And when you do a /o, it will open up another session for you. Okay, so now I will have 3 sessions for me. If you want to see the status, some of the messages, some system data, and so who has logged in, what was the time logged in, and the CET time. When does the license expires, and the server name is S4H 2021. So this is the name of the server. And the database is HDB, HANA database. We'll soon talk about this HANA database. The operating system is Linux. Some basic technical information. Okay, so let's get into some little bit of theory. So why are we learning technology as finance guys? That is one, I think, kind of a question which all the finance guys have. Why so much of emphasis on technology for us? We have done CA, we have done MBA, we have CMAs, and we learned so much. But why we have to again get onto this? So if you look at the evolution stage, evolution in the way technology has developed uh, in 95, 96, when or 97 when I worked with General Motors. So at that time, I worked with 3.0 F version, which at that time was the latest one. So it was like considered to be a high-tech kind of SAP version. Okay. And even though if I look at the screen now, it will look like a very raw kind of screen, but at the time we just enjoyed it when that. Our email system, we just had email, it was a Lotus Note, something that I don't think is used anymore as an email client. There was no real-time kind of a chat, but the systems were, of course, network connected very well. So from an enterprise perspective, there was some technology evolution that was happening. Internet had also started coming in. So we had a separate room in which there was internet connection where you can go and surf the internet. So that was just a beginning of how technology started coming in the enterprise. If you go back home now, our home was very, very less tech savvy if you compare it from today. Our television was like a CRT kind of a television with a rudimentary remote. You have to just make sure that you are uh, directing it towards the TV. Otherwise, it will not work. So, besides that, in technology side, we had a telephone, which was a landline. And yeah, in 97, we had buttons on that phone, not that you have to dial. So it had slightly evolved from the dialing telephone to the button telephone. But then a big jump came uh, as the internet started evolving. And as internet started evolving, companies started having their websites. So we had a Google site coming up where we could see maps on in Google maps on the net, and then we could see various products. So I think buying was not possible till 90. But a big jump in internet consumption came when the YouTube and Facebook and all this they started coming up. Yahoo, very few now use Yahoo, but there were many such things which had come up. So after internet, along with that, in the 90s, towards the end, mobile started coming up, and you'll find few people with a mobile just walking and talking. Not much, but yeah. But 2005, mobile had started developing quite a lot, and uh, I think by 2010, it uh, brought in all other apps into it, like whether it's a bank or whether it's your calendar or whether it's your diary, contacts, or everything came in. And after that came the apps within mobile, and all this turned to prove to be uh, a big game for the consumers because now the technology started coming into the hands of consumers. So I started in 97 when the technology was in the enterprise, but then in next 10 to 15 years, it started coming into the hands of consumers. Today, the kind of technology we are using in our hands is much better than what was used in the spacecraft that landed on the moon, right? And we are actually using similar technology that is used in the enterprise. So, but why I'm talking about all this? Because today, consumers are driving the organizations, not the other way. Earlier, it was the organizations that were, had a lot of technology, all this ERP stuff, CRM, and everything. But consumer had very rudimentary thing. But now consumers have everything in their hands. So this is led to a consumer boom, and they are now deciding the fate of the organizations. Earlier, if you remember, there were companies that lasted for 100 years, 150 years. Many of them are no more, like Kodak, for example, Xerox, for example, and there's so many. Even in Indian companies, there are many. They are no more there. So why they lost their existence? Just because consumer had a different preference. So the rising consumerism is becoming a challenge. Okay? So to retain consumers, to retain the growth. So for that, organizations or companies have to understand consumers better. Now consumers have a competitive choice. They have got a lot of choices. They can switch over from one brand to other brand so quickly. This today I don't want to use this brand. I'll buy another brand. That was not the scene 20 years back. So preferences loyalty are changing very rapidly compared to what it was, and things are changing very fast. I was in conference last 2 days, and we were talking about uh, all this new technology that has come up. So Chat GPT is another one that is going to challenge even Google. Let's try to get into Chat GPT. So there you can, it's the next level of Google. You just put out some, okay, can you tell me about SAP, and it will give you a proper written on essay on SAP. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the things are changing so rapidly now. And that is what is driving all the changes. So that's what is putting all the pressures back to the organization to uh, upgrade themselves or to adopt newer technology continuously so that they can reach out to consumers or their customers much faster. So the time to reach customers or time to market has now become much shorter compared to earlier. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, all this is revolutionized. All this data are now coming into the organization. So I worked in general organizations where we had worked, where we had built systems that can capture data from the consumers. So our databases are becoming very large now just because of this. We have to get huge data from consumers to understand what is the preference pattern now and how can we adapt to consumers' need. So all this is impacting us in our career. Stiff competition is there. Corporates are looking for tech-savvy employees to join them. Most of you who call me, they said, I don't know, there's a requirement from their prospective employer that you should know SAP, or you should be knowing some tools in data analytics like a Python. So that is now a very standard kind of thing that has come up, and it's all coming up because of what I told you in last few minutes. So this is all is leading to what we now hear about digital transformation. What happened in the enterprise was not a digital transformation. It was just digitization. All the business processes were, automated. But digital transformation is a fundamental rethinking of customer experience. Remember, it's about customer experience, which I've been talking about in last 10 minutes. Changing the business model from brick and mortar to digital. All the companies are now adopting this. And when you have an enterprise system like SAP, how can it live up to this kind of an expectation? Or even if it is Oracle or Tally or anything, can your enterprise system connect with your customers? It's about finding new ways to deliver value, generate revenue, and improve efficiency, or basically improve profitability. And it happens when organizations embed digital technologies across all of their operations. This helps businesses scale and compete by responding to changing markets and better serving their customers. And we'll look at Reliance in some time. So how it has also grown up in last 10 years uh, from being a major in the oil and gas sector to now it is into retail and the telecoms. So all this is transformation. This is happening because of the rise in consumerism. That is the driving factor along with the internet. So internet, mobile, leading to consumerism, leading to all this technology transformation that we are seeing. Three areas: business process transformation. How can you transform your business processes so that you can reach out to your customer at the fastest possible time? How can you change your business model, becoming more digital so your customer can directly interact with you? And it should not happen through a layer of retailers or distributors and wholesalers. So now companies are reaching out direct to customers. There's a business model now. Earlier it was B2B, B2C, now it is D2C, direct to customers. How can you reach out direct to customers? And organizational cultural transformation, without that, you cannot bring about any transformation. The mindset of people have to change. They have to adopt technology. But it's not something that happens immediately. These days, the companies are recruiting more young people because they know that they are more tech savvy. They will be able to change with technology much faster compared to much older guys. So that's why you will see a lot of these changes are going on in the industry. And so we have to adapt to all this. Digital transformation technology, modern ERP and databases are like the foundation stone or the foundation layer for all other technologies that will work. So advanced analytics on the fly. So earlier we were satisfied with real time. So before that we were more of OLAP and OLTP. So we will get a report 2-3 days later. We are happy with it. Then came a real time. But now we need it on the fly. So the moment, so whether I'm traveling, can I see my report on the mobile? So that's kind of advanced analytics people are looking at. Cloud, anytime, anywhere, access to systems and data. And then artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, and RPA. I'm not going to talk about all this, but these are the things which are transforming the landscape around us, and which is what is impacting our choices in employment. Or in practice also, not just employment, but in practice also. So with this, we can connect with HANA now. So why HANA? What was the lead? Why not ECC or why not R3? We should, like if SAP itself has to survive, then it has to also evolve with the changing need. SAP is good at, being closer to the market and understanding the change that is happening, and which is where it evolved HANA. So HANA and S4 HANA maybe sound like a bit confusing or twins, but HANA is like a platform on which S4 HANA, the application is built. Okay, so HANA is called High Performance Analytic Appliance. It has transformed the enterprise applications. Earlier, we used to have hard disk in the server. It is very similar to the laptops. Now, most of the laptops have SSD, but laptops which are 2-3 years old, you'll still see hard disk. Or even the SSD laptop comes with a hard disk. But if you read through the technical literature, it will tell you that the RPM is 5,200 something. So then the fastest server, I think, had 7,500 something like an RPM. RPM is the rotation per minute. So the disk rotates, and that impacts the speed at which you can retrieve the data. Okay. So that was the kind of parameter based on which all the programs were written. So a program cannot be faster than the disk. It is not possible because disk will put a constraint to the program or on the number of records that can be fetched. So everything that was made, like whether it is the processor or whether it is the program, applications, and everything was dependent on the disk speed. So SAP eliminated the disk and it brought in RAM. So why RAM came? Just because of the rise in computing and internet and mobile technology and everything which has happened in last 10 to 20 years, the technology of RAM also developed and the usage of RAM increased. Now today we use 12 GB of RAM very easily in our mobile phone, but look at the spec of mobile phone 8-10 years back. We just had in KBs or in MBs. Okay. So the use of RAM reduced the cost, and that's where it became commercially more viable to bring in RAM. Now RAM does not have any rotating part in it, so it is without friction. So that means that it can process the data at a very high speed compared to a disk. So the fetch time will be very less. Data compression is 11 times, and it reduces the storage space that you need. So the storage issue came up because of the big data, and big data came up because of the rising consumerism. Rising consumerism means that companies will have to get more data about the consumer behavior and store that data, and that is the big data. Now, that data has a variety, velocity, and everything. You hear about 3V, 5V, okay, which wasn't there in case of enterprise data. Enterprise data is usually, very standard row column kind of a data. But consumer data can have videos, can have text, can have images, and many things. So that's where the database also had to evolve. So the earlier database, mostly SAP, clients used Oracle RDBMS, and which was like row and column in case of in the way we see in Excel. But when you have to read the data, the system has to go through rows and columns. So which means it will take it will take more time. Okay, so SAP came up with a columnar database design. So there's just one column and system will have to just read through the column. So it's very quick. So memory reads faster by 1 million times than conventional database hard disk. Okay, so storage and database combination led to a massive change in the speed. The speed was needed because, again, come back to the consumer, there's huge data coming in. You need some way to process the data much faster compared to the enterprise data, which was very structured data. Now, earlier processor were designed keeping in mind the storage database, but now processor have also has to evolve with this kind of change. So parallel processing, multi-core CPU architecture, distributed environment, you'll hear all this terminology. So that all came in. So these three brought about changes in the way system is architected. So the enterprise system a few years back was designed in two big pieces. One is the transaction, other is the reporting. So the reporting piece would pull in data overnight from the transaction piece and then provide a report. So generally there was a acceptable 24-hour lag between the transaction and the report. So which was called OLAP and OLTP. So online application processing and online transaction processing. So OLTP is the transaction piece. So with HANA, considering that it has got a lot of storage, speed and everything, so SAP could combine both of them together and you can do an on-the-fly analytics, which is what I talked about in the digital transformation. So single database, you can do an on-fly because of the speed, because of the columnar database, you can do that. And the data model. So over a period of time, because of the complexity in the enterprise, the data model or the tables and everything became very complex in SAP. And it was very difficult to also do some reconciliation. Internal reconciliation should be there for system to maintain its integrity. With HANA coming in, SAP could redesign its model and it could bring in a simplified model. So that is where you will see simplification coming in S/4HANA. Okay. So now, what is S/4HANA? We have known about HANA. So what is S/4HANA? So it's an off-the-shelf ERP. Off-the-shelf means you just go and buy a product. So you go walk into Louis Philippe showroom and buy a jacket, for example. It's off the shelf. You're not asking a tailor to fit it for you. But then the jacket may require some fitting. So there'll be a tailor who will just do some kind of fitting for the size and other things. So similarly, it is an off-the-shelf ERP. It is not programmed grounds up for different organization. It is one product that is actually implemented in all the organization across the world. It doesn't matter which country you are in. It's the same product that is used. So, but then it can be configured and customized as per the business requirement. For example, metal industry is different than gas. Gas is different than fast-moving consumer goods, different than chemicals, and services are different. So all this industry are different. And within that industry also, company may have their own requirements. So it can be customized and configured. But a standard SAP without major changes can be implemented in a shorter time compared to when you have to configure a lot or customize it a lot. So architecture difference between these two. So the ECC was a three-tier architecture. Three-tier means that you saw this GUI. Okay, this GUI is a client. It's a client. It's called a thin client, like 750 MB. So the whole SAP is not installed on my laptop. It is just this GUI. And when I log in, it connects to the server and allows me to do transaction on the server. So the server has got the application, which is the ERP. And then there's also database server, so that database and application are separated. So from an efficiency perspective, that's how it was designed. This design was there till ECC. Okay. But with HANA, there was no need to have these two servers separate, application and database. So SAP merged both of them together into one. So the application and the database is in the same server, and then your client. So it is a two-tier architecture. So quickly about the SAP design, we are going to look a lot into in this program, how we can design SAP and why SAP is designed in this way. Because sometimes it looks very complex, but then there is a reason for it. The reason is that it is actually targeting global MNCs scenario, and which are complex, and they have to ensure compliance in each and every country with the same product. So that means that there should be something in SAP to activate some different functionality for different countries. That's where it's complex, but to understand it in a very simple way, think of Lego toys. We all have played with the blocks of uh, Lego toys, and we have built houses and other objects. Just talking about the houses, with Lego toys, you can build different types of houses. So it can be row houses, it can be bungalows, it can be multi-storied building using the same set of Lego toys. We can have different colors and different designs. It's the same way with SAP. With the same SAP, you can connect different blocks, kind of blocks within the SAP, and you can build a system for different clients. And your client can be in different industry, and within industry they can have different requirements. So you can meet that requirement. That's how SAP is designed. Which is why it is an off-the-shelf product. It's not it is a pre-programmed in a way that you can connect all these pieces together. So different building blocks means you got a client uh, level of design, then got enterprise structure, configuration, master data, transactions. There are modules, sub-modules, and business processes. And of course, then there are programming and security aspect also. So all this is put together, we build a system. To learn SAP, think big, because uh, SAP is targeted at large corporations with more complex scenarios. And so when you get into SAP, you may perhaps try to build it for a small company and look at so many configurations for the small company. You'll say, "Oh, this is overwhelming for a small company to do this many configuration," but then it's the same product that is used for small or large size companies. So that's the reason it sometimes looks overwhelming. So key consideration SAP design is, I will say fundamental thing is to understand business, but understanding business requirement is not that straightforward. We always say, okay, let's understand the business requirement and we'll build SAP, but who will give you the business requirement? End users? But are they literate enough to understand SAP is designed to give you requirement that can fit into SAP? No, absolutely not. When we work with end user, they may give requirement from their side, but they may not be aware about what is happening in the other part of the organization. So you don't get to see all the pieces put together. So as a consultant, that's a big task for all of us to do. So understanding a business, size of the business, nature of the business, what kind of industry it is into, what kind of product it is manufacturing, what kind of customer it has, all this is very important. So you take out their annual reports, you take out their MIS and read through it, understand what kind of reportings have happened in last year, last 1 year. So that will give you a good idea about some of the requirement that could be implicit, but your user has not explicitly mentioned about it. Regulations. What are the regulations that are impacting the organization? For a simple organization, can be just a Companies Act, Income Tax Act. But for larger organization, it can be even listing requirements. It can be companies which are listed on different stock exchanges of the world, or they have subsidiaries in different countries working in different currencies. So all those things will have to be kept in mind. Internal controls. How can better control be implemented in so that uh, when data is entered, it is only once that it is entered, and you don't have to do any other correction to the data to get to the final report. So internal control is also key requirement to design the system. Business transformation, I talked about it separately. So that's the way to understand how can you leverage SAP's capabilities to transform the business. Maybe end user has given you requirement which is very simple, rudimentary, but how can this be transformed, to uh, make the company reach to the consumer much faster? What are the different technologies that can be brought together? Management decision making, uh, what data management needs, and management requirement is very dynamic, much more dynamic than a regulator's requirement. Okay, companies exchanges do not happen so often. Your schedules still 3 has been there for a long time. So, but then management decision making needs changes every month. How can you have a system that can cater to that kind of requirement? And what happens if business grows? What about the scalability of the business? What happens if they're adding new plant or new company, new legal entities? So all this will be a key consideration in your design. Okay, so just want to have a quick check. You got any questions? Any quick questions on whatever we have discussed so far?
In HANA, will there be any change in T codes, or the same existing T codes will hold good in HANA as well?
I don't understand what does the existing FICO mean. Means you might saying that
Means,
if you are into ECC, then will it be the same as
yes,
S/4HANA? No,
yes, yes.
there are
Means,
changes that has happened, especially in the GL accounts, in the costing side. Means in 2021, the changes are enormous now compared to the earlier versions.
okay.
So some of the T codes will work, but there are processes that have become different. Like in asset accounting, things have changed. The new ledger, accounting principles, currencies, these all have brought about changes.
So our complete course will cover the HANA, right?
Not HANA, S/4HANA.
Yeah, S4 HANA.
Correct. S/4HANA with FICO and integration with MMPP and SD. Okay, and
So the latest one is S4 HANA only, no?
yes, latest one is S/4HANA. And there have been a lot of versions, like it started with 14 series, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now it is 2021. That is the latest. So we are going to work on 2021. Okay, so let me continue. So let us understand the data structure. Data structure, the way I put up, don't think that you'll see a similar triangle in SAP. But this diagram, if you keep in mind, it will help you to learn SAP much faster. Looks very simplified. So it has got 5 different levels, as you can see: client, enterprise, section, configuration. These 3 are part of SPRO or config or IMG, which I shown you. And these 2 are the part of the landing screen, the end user side, which I've shown you when I logged into SAP. The way SAP is designed, it is designed by the functions which are organized in any company. So if you go to any organization or open up organization chart of your company, so if you are a manufacturing organization, then you will have a finance department to start with. Okay, that's where you will be part of. Then within finance, you may also have a separate controlling, and then you'll have a purchasing department that handles the materials, purchasing of the materials and movement of materials. Then the production department and sales department. So these are the most important department. Of course, there's an HR department. You can't miss it out. Quality assurance department, and then there's an IT department and others. But from a purely SAP perspective, we are just looking at this 5. And SAP is organized by module, which relate to these functions. So FI and CO relates to the finance function. Relates to the purchasing organization. PP relates to the production, and sales and distribution relates to the sales organization. So the transactions, master data, and configurations, they are all structured in a way that it is modular. It is by module. Okay. But then within that, you see this arrow also I've drawn. So that arrow signifies that there is also integration, which is the connections. So like the way you work in the organization, you also have some connecting point. When you're working in finance department, you're not just working in silos all the time. You're going to purchase department, you're going to sales department and production department and having meetings with them, correct? So there are meeting points. There are issues where you have to meet with other departments. So similarly, SAP also integrates based on specific requirements where it has to transfer data from one functional module to other functional module. If, for example, purchase of material, when you're purchasing a material, then it is happening in MM, but then the purchase data has to also go into FI. So that's called integration. So there are business processes defined for integration, like order to cash, procure to pay, and all these processes are there to that you can define and bring about more automation. The functional consultants, that is, the FICO consultant or the power users who pivot their career into consulting, they work in these three areas and also have an understanding of the two area below, master data and the transactions. Because unless you have an understanding of master data and transaction, you cannot do consulting in the other three areas. So usually a functional consultant has grown from the transaction side, okay, from a domain side, like a CA or CMA, okay, and then it has gone into configuration enterprise I mean the consultant as a functional consultant. So as a functional consultant, they will design, configure, and provide solutions from a system perspective. And the end user, or the power user and the management, they work on the transaction side. They do reconciliations, reporting, analysis of the data, and other stuff. Okay. And we are going to learn about each of these, and we'll see how does each and every element controls the transactions. So SAP is very tightly designed application. So from client level, it will control the transaction. We'll understand under what scenario and all that part. But this is one diagram which we'll carry throughout this program. And the whole program is based on this, this diagram. So what is a client? To understand a client, you will have to understand the organization in which SAP gets implemented. So for example, if you are just one legal entity, XYZ Limited, okay, and just as one legal entity, no subsidiaries, nothing, and it has got its plant and everything, products, customer, then the client and the legal entity are same because there's only one legal entity. And when you think of a large group, maybe Reliance, Tata Group, or even if your organization has got multiple subsidiaries or businesses in different regions, then your client will include all the legal entities. Okay. So client currency will become the group currency. For example, take Reliance Group. It has its subsidiary in different countries of the world, and those subsidiaries, they work in different currencies, maybe US dollar, Chinese yuan, or Singapore dollar, depending upon the country in which that subsidiary is. But the consolidated report that Reliance prepares is in the group currency, which is INR. So client, while it includes all the subsidiaries, it will have its currency as the currency in which it will consolidate its result, which is called the group currency. And group currency is usually we use that in domain also quite a lot. It's the currency in which we will convert all the financial results into a consolidated result. So that's the way you can understand client, but then there's much more to it from a design perspective. So when you have to implement SAP in different legal entities or in companies where they are opening a branch every week, like a DMart or Reliance Retail, for example, they are opening a branch or store every week. How fast can you implement a system over there? So that's where the client design comes into handy, and we'll learn about it. So currency is defined at the client is used for group valuation or group accounting. So there is a T code SCC4 where you can see the client currency. So client currency cannot be changed. It is the currency which is defined when you are installing SAP. So at that time only the currency is defined, and then it becomes the group currency. And it has a deep impact on the way SAP is designed. Object defined at this level can be used across the group for all legal entities, thereby reducing the cost of global rollout. So that is one very important feature of SAP, the scalability part. When the organization have to scale, then which software can scale as fast as the organization is scaling, then SAP can provide you that kind of ability. But of course, the design has to consider that kind of scalability. That's where, in the business requirement, I talked about scalability. So when you design keeping in mind that scalability factor, then the scalability will be much faster. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of challenge when you have to expand the organization. The org structure. You start with a very small organization or a large organization. There's a well-defined org structure, and that org structure would be there in your organization as well. So you may have a head of the department, and then there are functions reporting to him, like technical operations or HR, sales and marketing, finance, okay, business development, all this reporting to CEO. It's a very simple kind of an organization. Look at slightly more complex organization, which has divisions, and divisions may have multiple products. So a division can be like a textile division and a retail division. So textile division will manufacture and retail division will sell. So that's where a divisional organization comes into picture. The reason why a company would form a divisional organization is to measure its profitability by different product groups, by manufacturing and by retailing. So, and also the skill requirement for this kind of organization could be different. So the divisional head may come up with different skill sets in this case. So that's where company thinks of organizing itself into different divisions. And then there's a central division like an admin or human resource procurement. These are all important to understand because when we get into SAP, we have to configure SAP based on all this. So which is why I am doing some grounds up right now, so that when we start building or designing SAP, we keep all these factors in mind, and we'll revisit it again and again as we get into SAP designing. And then comes the global organization, which is very projectized kind of an organization, matrix kind of an organization structure. So any large size organization, whether it is an Indian company or any foreign multinational, will be a matrix kind of organization. So it has got operations in different continents of the world, and then the divisions which cuts across these continents. So a division that is manufacturing, say, automobiles, and then division that is manufacturing electronics. Okay, so then those division will have the legal entity in different countries of the world, and they will all be reporting into the headquarters, where the corporate executive board is looking at the performance from a divisional perspective, and of course maybe by regional perspective also. But most of the time the legal entity performance is then managed by the local management. Okay. So that is a global organization with a global presence. It has got multiple regulations to comply with. For example, in India, they will have to comply with Companies Act. In USA, US GAAP. In German, there are German laws. And if you go to Latin America, there are weird laws that relates to in the Latin American countries. So a lot of those regulations, and of course, multiple currencies. Every country has its own currency. Correct. So USA will have US dollar, India will have INR, Singapore will have Singapore dollar. So transactions actually happen in those currencies, and financial reports are made in those currencies, but the consolidation happens in the group currency. So that is one of the requirement that comes up for a company which is globally has a global presence, or which wants to scale up to have a global presence. In both the cases, you need to have this kind of scenario in mind. Then they will have large number of subsidiaries and associates and legal entities. Each division performance is measured by region. And then there is a group consolidation, also consolidation by divisions. Then there is a segment reporting that has to be done. So all this is part of it. So SAP enterprise structure is also built to match the kind of organization structure which you will find in all the kind of organization, whether it's a single entity level kind of organization or multiple divisional organization or a global organization. Okay, so enterprise structure is there in finance, controlling, purchasing, and sales. There are 4 areas we'll have enterprise structure. In FI, we'll call it company code. In CO, controlling area, operating concern, purchasing, purchase org and plant, and sales org and divisions. So right now you don't have to get too confused with all this because we are going to do hands-on with all this. But at the initial stage, I'm just trying to give you a holistic view of everything that is going to come, so that you have visibility of the future as well as what you are doing now. So so now what we have to understand is the landscape, how the SAP is organized in companies that have implemented SAP. So usually usually not, but it is a SAP recommended design to organize SAP servers in this kind of a landscape. So we've got a development, quality, and production servers. Production server is the one where you will see the live data. So all the production orders are created in the production server. The invoices are being processed in the production server. Goods are being delivered in the production server. All the live data is happening in the production server. So that's the server where you would not like this server to be down or even for a minute. So 99.99% uptime is expected for production server, because few minutes of downtime would mean a lot of revenue loss, because you may not be able to bill to your customer, and many other system data interfacing with the production server will also be down because the production server is down. So this is like a very important part to be managed in any organization that is implementing SAP. So now we go to the development server. So development server is the server in which the consultants, they build their design, the first step in their design. So when we get a requirement, we first try to iterate in that server and see whether it will work, considering the requirement and considering the SAP's capability, and also what all kind of development will be needed. So that all is done in development server. And once the design is ready, we test it to see whether it is working. So it is called unit testing. So we do that testing in development server. We first try to get ourselves clear whether this solution will work or not. So then we invite the end user and the power user in the quality server to test. So we'll transport or we'll send our configuration to another server, which is called quality server. Most of the time, quality server is a copy of the production server, a closed copy, which means that it may have been copied a week back, so there can be lag of a week data, but then it is generally a copy of production server, so that when end user test any report or any transaction, they can check whether it is working well or not. So a complete testing is done, including a integration testing, to ensure that whatever work we are doing is going to work for the end user, and it's not going to conflict with any other programs. So once the assurance is given, or once the sign-off is given by the end user, the power user, then the configuration moved to the production server. This process ensures that the production server will not have any bugs. If you come across any situation where the production server went down, then it is quite possible that something was transported from quality server to the production server, but it was not adequately tested. That could be the only reason why a production server will suddenly go down. And that's how, whenever we have to find reason for such failure, we always find out what are the new developments that were transported, and we figure out whether it was thoroughly tested or not, and what can be done to make it work, and then move it to the production server again. So SAP is modular. Like I've already explained, there are different modules based on the functions, and they are tightly integrated. So this part I'll come a bit later. So we are just 1 hour into this discussion, and we have talked quite a lot about technology and finance. We talked about digital transformation, right? And we talked about a couple of things about HANA, and I also logged into S4HANA and showed you just a very basic navigation into SAP. What I want to do is now go into one of the large size company and understand what could be their possible requirement from a system perspective. So I will share the annual report of Reliance, but our purpose will not to do any financial analysis of this, but we are going to see Reliance from a systems perspective and understand the complexities, because when you have to build a system, you need to have some business perspective before you. Otherwise, what kind of design are you going to prepare? So when we have to work on SAP, we'll need to have some perspective. You can bring that perspective of your organization and do it. Otherwise, we are not able to really do a good job when we have to work on SAP hands-on. Okay. Again, like I said, key consideration in SAP design is something we have to keep in mind. And I've already highlighted few areas that I want to take you into, so it won't take much time. So look at the kind of segments or verticals that is Reliance operates. Retail with a massive turnover of 1.9 lakh crore and EBITDA of 12,000 crore. So that's huge, from the size. If you have to just look at from the size. But if you have to look from a diversity, then look at oil and chemicals. Retail and oil and chemicals, very two different areas. 500,000 crores of turnover, which is 4 times or 3.5 times of retail. But then oil and chemical was there for last 30 years. Retail is just grown and it is growing much faster. You see, the graph can show you. So there can be more system requirement on the retail side because of the growth that is happening on the retail side. And the digital services, which is again a very different kind of vertical compared to retail and oil. So I think their cloud and 5G ready capabilities like in the Geo falls under the digital services. Then the oil and gas E&P is all about explorations. It's called, I think, upstream. This must be an upstream, and this could be downstream one. And the media and entertainment, various like money control and various TV channels that it is owning. So it is a small unit right now compared to others. So they're looks like there are 5 verticals, major verticals. There may be smaller one also. And then the next is page 22. So there are 2 results, standalone and consolidated, which means Reliance has got large number of subsidiaries. In fact, yesterday, someone from Reliance told me that they've got 500 subsidiaries that they need to consolidate within, I think, 10 to 15 days time to churn out their financial statement. And that's a huge task for any system to do this in such a short time. And then they have 500 columnar data to consolidate it. So you see, this is in US dollar, and it's because I think Reliance is also listed on NYSE and some other foreign exchange, where they also have to provide a financial statement based on the listing requirements in those exchanges. So maybe one of the requirement in Reliance is also to have multiple currency conversion. And of course, the standalone and consolidated shows that there are a lot of subsidiaries and also subsidiaries operating in foreign countries and accounting in foreign currencies. Okay. Of course, you can get more into this and get into further requirements. Each and every piece of figure here will tell you the requirement. Considering the even when you look at the cost, you look at the inventories, you'll understand what kind of capabilities will be needed for a system to work for this kind of a company. So right now, I'm just going to spend a minute, 2 minutes on each of this. So at least give you a brief outline. Of course, you can do some more research on all this or any other company of your choice. Now let us get into retail a bit more. See this data. They have got 15,196 retail stores. It is humongous size. It's not that easy. How are they going to manage each of these stores? It requires bottom-up reporting to happen from stores level to the top level. And each and every SKUs also needs to be managed. You also need to see profitability by many product groups. You also need to see profitability by maybe different stores. Besides profitability, you may also like to see ROI. So how much are you investing in each store and how much return you are getting? I'm just trying to, I'm not worked with Reliance, but I'm just trying to expand my thinking to see what all can be needed in this kind of a company. And again, we are just thinking from a very rudimentary stage right now. More detailed analysis is needed. But this is a good beginning to start understanding a business of a complexity where you can bring in SAP. And then comes page number 156. So this is a statement of profit. This is standalone results. Okay, so if you get into it and try to relate it by module, which I had shown you, the sales is 463,000 crores. Of course, everything comes from GL, no doubt. The whole trial balance comes out from GL. But then GL, as we learn in this program further, is integrated. So this comes from sales and distribution module and along with FIGL integration and GST recovered. So which means, they will of course have a huge requirement from a GST perspective compliance, considering the number of stores they have, considering the different types of businesses they are into. So I think each and every subsection of GST would be applicable to Reliance. And other income could be like, rent or something like that, which may be directly entered into FI or can be coming from SD module also. Cost of material consumed. So the material movement is huge, 2 lakh crore on a sale of 4.63 CR, 4.6 lakh CR. Okay. So which means it will require a very tight, very well designed module so that you can have proper control over this. Purchase of stock and trade is, I think, like trading goods. Some excise duty is also involved here. This is GST. So on the expense side, these are the can be two major consideration, and of course there can be some more as you get into it. More detail. Depreciation is 10,276 crore, which means the asset size could be much bigger because they're into oil and gas, which requires plant and machineries. Like Jamnagar is a huge complex, so obviously their asset size will be much bigger, and hence they may require a very well-designed asset accounting module. Okay, so look at the asset now. Since we had started talking about asset, 223,000 crores of asset, and you see the turnover is 463. So 50% of it is like asset. There are some investments also. These are investment in maybe subsidiaries. So on the inventory, it is 45,923 crore. So assets is of course much bigger than inventory, but yeah, then also it will require a very solid system that can manage material. Receivables, 21, oh, sorry, this is cash. So cash is also pretty good, 21,714 crores. Receivables, 14,000 crores. Most of it should be coming from oil and gas because in the retail, they may not have receivables. And so also in Geo, most of it is prepaid, but there are some, I think there's some postpaid also. Most of it, receivables should be coming from oil and gas. And then look at the payables. Current liabilities, borrowings, lease liabilities, trade payables. So here they have done a classification because this is required by a law to have a separate separate amount for SMEs, and the total payable is huge, 1.33 lakh crore. That's because I think their purchase of material is also huge. So it will require a very good system that can manage vendors. Okay, so let us look at one more area. So these are subsidiaries. During your free time, you can go through one or two of these subsidiaries to see where are they headquartered. Maybe many of them could be outside India. Like this one, you see affiliated USA LLC. This is PTY, looks like a Singapore. A lot of infra related companies which are organized by South, West, and by regions. Maybe there's a requirement in the infrastructure to have legal entity by different projects. So all this is going to help you when you are designing your system. So what could be the size of legal entities? What could be the size of stock, or what could be the size of customers? Everything is very important for you to understand. Just dial. But Just Dial is in US dollar. I thought it is in an Indian company. Okay. So this was just a brief into Reliance. So we understand, and Reliance has implemented SAP. It is one of the oldest implementation, one of the largest implementation in India, and very complex considering its complex requirements. And of course, it has got many other technology also interfacing with SAP. Though I've not worked in Reliance, but I've heard about it from different people, both in various conferences as well as outside. Okay, so at least we have now quite understanding, at least a brief understanding of SAP. So what will be our landscape of learning? And so this diagram will actually provide you in a very organized way the whole of SAP. That is relevant for all of us from a FICO perspective. So this blue triangle you see is the FI module. It has got a general ledger as a core. I am calling it core because finally everything has to come into general ledger. Like if you think of Reliance, it has got so many subsidiaries. So finally it has to come into general ledger for you to consolidate. It has got so many retail stores, 50,000 retail stores. Finally, it has to all post to a general ledger so that you can take out a trial balance, correct? And from there you can make a financial statement. So that's the general ledger. And in SAP, or even in most of the system that I worked in, other system, non-SAP system also, there's a concept of main ledger and the subsidiary ledger. So subsidiary ledgers are like AP, AR, and asset accounting. And main ledger is the general ledger. So AP, AR, and asset accounting. The arrows show that they are all integrated with GL. So any transaction that happens in AP, AR, and asset accounting gets also into GL. So finally, the purpose is to get a financial statement from a legal entity perspective. So that is the whole purpose of FI. Besides, of course, having a good internal control, funds management, and all that. But if a system cannot deliver you good legal reporting, then that FI module is perhaps not reliable. Correct. So that's what is importance. And then the business processes, like we have at least heard about now, and you all already know about it, that procure to pay, order to cash, um, record, acquire to, sorry, um, to the acquisition of assets. There is also production cycle, plan to produce. So all these business processes finally culminate into a general ledger to the extent they are posting a financial number. If there is something, some transaction which is happening that is confined to procurement, but it is not impacting financial numbers, then it's okay. It need not be integrated. But rest all will post into general ledger through also one of these submodules, AP, AR, and asset accounting. Okay, so then you get a legal reporting. Okay, from a regulatory perspective. Of course, in the regulation also comes different types of regulations. Companies Act require you to have a financial statement different than income tax, and US GAAP has a very different requirement because of the difference in accounting principle and also the treatment of different items. So that way the legal reporting need not be one, but it can be multiple types of legal reporting. And then comes the CO module, which is where the management reporting happens, or reporting from a decision-making perspective. So how much is each branch of Reliance Retail is earning? How is the product mix? How is each product group contributing to Reliance Retail? Or which region is contributing higher profits to the entity? So all that kind of analysis can be done in CO module. Not possible in FI because FI is run through a GL account, which is needed from a regulatory perspective. So how can we have two perspectives from the same transaction that gets posted in SAP? So that is what we will see. So as we go through this program, we are going to monitor this chart and the other chart, which is this one, the data structure. So these two will be like foundation for our program. Okay, so any questions so far? Are we all good? Finding it heavy? Any of you got any questions, you can unmute and ask.
Sir, in the previous slide, there was one concept, COPA or PCA.
Correct.
What was that?
Yeah, so for example, we talked about Reliance Retail. Okay, so each branch, can you, if each branch management would like to see an ROI, then how will you do? Can you do this in FI? or you need some other capabilities. So in SAP, there are many ways you can do it. One of the ways is to use a profit center, where you can define each and every branch as a profit center, and you can find out the ROI. So when you have to calculate ROI, you know that it is profit divided by the assets, so you can find out the ROI. You can also do a profitability analysis using COPA, where you are only looking at profitability, like contribution margin. For example, you have different distribution channels like retail stores and uh, or institutions, for example. Then which is more profitable, or you want to see profitability by different product groups. For example, grocery is one product group and clothing is another within retail, within Reliance Retail. So how will you see the profitability? Okay, so that you cannot see in FI module, because the purpose of FI module is not to get down to this level of design. So it is all done through POPA. And we'll learn more about it, but this is just to give you a very high level glimpse into it. At least you will be able to relate.
And what it stands for? PCA? PCA means PCA,
PCA is
COPA?
profit center accounting.
Profit center accounting. Okay.
Yeah. And COPA is controlling profitability analysis. CO is the module and PA is the submodule, profitability analysis.
Okay.
And the PP, SD are like PP is a module, production planning, SD is a module, sales and distribution, is another module. So we are going to do configuration in all this module to the extent it is needed from a FICO perspective. So we are going to do entire configuration from FI, CO, PP, SD, and get to all these deliverables. So we'll produce material, we will sell that material, we'll procure raw material, we'll convert that raw material into finished product. We may have multiple stages in which the raw material is getting converted into finished product, the number of operations. So we're going to do a lot of all this kind of configuration and transactions in this whole journey. So right now, I've given it a very high level, but each of this will have a lot of details as we get into. Okay, I'll also quickly share the program structure. Let's say quick info, then. So today, our target is to at least do some of this, and then so this color shows the week in which we'll have the class. So day 2, day 3, day 4. We'll have further deep dive into FI. There's a concept of new ledgers, multiple ledgers. We'll do configurations. We'll set up the whole FI structure. We'll set up multiple company codes. We'll do the transactions there. We'll do multiple currency kind of scenarios. And we'll start with controlling. Then we'll get into profit center accounting and some amount of COPA. Then taxations, vendor and customer accounting, asset accounting. There's AUC, like asset under construction. So a plant that is being built, but it takes time, maybe 6 months, year, 2 years. So that is called asset under construction. Then the whole procurement cycle. We are going to configure all this and also do transactions. Then in this week, the material side, the material ledger, the whole purchase order, MIGO, MIRO, all this, and controlling. Again, we come back to controlling. We'll do the planning and controlling, standard costing, do a production in SAP. So produce the material, after doing the standard costing, we'll create BOM, routing, work centers, and all these objects which are needed in PP. So even those objects which actually FICO consultant does not do in a project scenario, but in this training, I have to do it for you because we will not have multiple consultants. I'm going to wear hat of 5 different consultants to run this program. So then the SD configuration, and finally the sell of material to our customers, actual costing, and we'll wrap up with this. So about 20 sessions I am planning. It usually takes 1 or 2 more additional sessions also to clear some of the backlogs which may have been there. So methodology is complete hands-on with 3 months SAP S/4HANA access. My target audience is working finance professional, but freshers also join because these days for a fresher also it is expected that you at least have some understanding of SAP. And focus areas will be SAP FI, the whole of CO. It includes product cost. So CCA is cost and accounting, cost element accounting, internal order, product costing, actual costing, material ledger, COPA, profit center accounting, integration with FI, CO, MMPP, and SD. Data structure, like whatever data structure I have given you brief, we'll cover in detail. Business scenario O2, O2C, P2P, R2R, S2P, A2R, SAP analytics using tables. Tables are a great source of information. There are times when actually most of the time we won't have reports for many of the configuration related things. So we have to go for tables and error diagnosis and resolution. We'll create many errors by design. And also there are times when we come across a surprise error. So we'll have to resolve all this and we'll learn how to do it. So this will develop a skill in you to do it yourself. So that when you are actually working on SAP, you don't have to, be nervous. You know where you have to go to get additional information and do it. Okay. So I'll provide recording which will be fully downloadable within 1 hour. The whole purpose is that you practice. When you practice more, you will be in a position to develop skills. Okay, and the fees is 25,000 and it can be paid in installments. Okay. So any questions? Yeah, so Agnel D'Souza asking any material that I share? Yes. I'll show you. Let me see if I got that thing built up. So I will share this OneNote as a document. Okay, so week after week, I will have content built into this. So that will be converted into PDF and will share. That is one thing I share. The second, but I do not load too much of material onto you. The reason is that my target audience is again working professional, not have much time. So within whatever time is available, how can I get the best out of you to get you proficient in SAP? That is my lookout. But then there are some blogs that I provide, and I keep on adding to this based on it. So you can go to some of these blogs. You really don't need to read too much or burden yourself too much because there is a lot of material in SAP, and I'll just show you that. So I go to that FB50. Okay, so first thing let us see is the company code. I told about the client, and in this client, I got more than 500. You see at the top 500 entries. So there are more than 500 company codes created. So it's like a Reliance itself. The whole Reliance Industries you can think is there in this box with 500 company codes. So right now I got SAP All Access. So I can access all the company codes. I can do all the kind of configurations. A separate security access in SAP called SAP All, which actually is never given in the real life, because then it's a big audit issue if someone gets this. It is actually very disruptive. By knowingly or unknowingly, someone can create issues that can pull down the production server. So it is never given, but this is a training box, so you'll be given SAP All Access, which is like 100% access to all the SAP resource. So this is a company code. Now, if you want to know what is a company code, then you can do an F1 here. I have pressed the F1 from my laptop. So SAP will just give you a brief about what it thinks is a company code. It's an organization unit within financial accounting. Okay, so it is not telling that it's a legal entity, but in reality, that is what we use most of the time. So Reliance Industries Limited will be a legal entity, or you think of 0006 is like a Reliance Industries Limited. Okay, Because for each and every company code, we will prepare a false statement. Now, what is a document date? Do an F1. The document date is the date on which the original document was issued. Original document is the, let's say, invoice or or you are say posting adjustment entry. So you'll have some document and which will have a date. So that is what is the document date. So press F1 on the posting date. So you see the kind of material is there in SAP. All the books and all the blogs are written from this material. I've read through many of them. There is no difference in what is written here and what is written there. Okay, so don't bother yourself with reading just too much. Bother more about practicing. More you practice, more you know about this, faster you will learn. And it will be like, we also want to focus on quick results so that we don't have to spend years of effort in learning. So it is called low hanging fruit. So date, which is used when entering the document in financial accounting or controlling. So I'll just show you a posting right now. I'll press enter. So it will give me a message here. And you see, this is a sign which is in yellow. So yellow sign is the traffic signal, like, it's a warning. So you double click on it. So here it is not giving you any further detail, but it is saying that document date and posting date are in different fiscal year because it's just an information that SAP is giving. Now you may change this to 23 or this is the reality that your document date is past here. So you will continue ahead. You press enter one more time, then it will open up the screen for further entry. So there are certain controls which are built into SAP and many controls you can configure and there are program changes you can do to further controls. You can also build in security to give in more control. So that way there can be a lot of things that can be built based on the design. But you have to understand the design based on the business requirement and then configure it. But what you see on the screen is a standard screen which is delivered by SAP. So the moment I will install SAP, I go into AB50, I'll get this screen. I don't have to create this kind of screen using any program. Because it's like I already said at the beginning, it is an off-the-shelf software. Everything is available. In fact, SAP has built, separate chart of account, company code, and so this whole system is built such a way that SAP is tested using its own company code. So there are many objects that SAP has provided, which we call it as standard SAP objects. Many times we don't change that object. We use the way SAP is done. Okay. Only when there is a need, we change it. Now, what happens when you change it? So when you change it, then you'll have to manage yourself. SAP will not bothered about it. Whenever there's an update, then the system managers of your system will have to keep in mind that there are objects that you have customized yourself. Otherwise, it will be overwritten by the updates. Okay. So it is actually a big task. More you do customization, more you have challenge of managing it. So which is why it is always advised that try to use as much as SAP delivered object, but then in real life, companies do make their own customization. So I'll enter just a reference and I will select one account. So what I want to do is I want to post to an expense account and बैंक. So it's a very simple entry. Don't worry कि ऐसे तो हो नहीं सकता, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि हम करते हैं. But let me just demonstrate a GL entry. Okay. So debit and credit. I'll put amount 1529 and I'll put a star here. So I want SAP to copy it. So now it gives me a warning. So entry does not exist in SKB1. Okay, so we'll learn about this later, but right now let me just go ahead with this. So now it gives me another error. This is error because it is red. So it says it requires a valid text code, and then there's a lot of detail provided here. Okay, so including what is the diagnosis, the master record of account. So this account requires you to enter a valid tax code. So basically, we have implemented GST. So when you are entering an expense account, system is requiring you to also enter tax code so it can calculate the GST. So tax code must always be entered for tax accounts. Enter a valid tax code. Okay, so there is some change I have to do. I'll go into configuration. Now you see these favorites. I can make any transaction as my favorite that I use very often. So to do that, I can come to any of the T code. Let's say I want to use master record quite often. And this is the T code I use very often. So I will add to favorites. Okay, and you see it must have got added somewhere here. Okay, here. So I'll go to customization because this is a training box and some other user has made some change that is impacting me. So I'll restore that setting and this relates to text codes. Right now, I'll just save it. I'm not going to explain much right now because there's separate topic on tax where I'll explain you in more detail. So I'm just doing a customization and SAP is recording a change that I've made in customization. So I'll have to come back to this program again. 250. So now I can see more number of codes because I have brought in the change and now I can see the codes which I have created. So I'll press enter again. And you see, it is giving me one more warning that these are in different fiscal years. Okay, accepted. But it gives me one more error. You see, account, this one requires an account assignment relevant to cost accounting because this is an expense account and I've already implemented the CO module. So when you implement CO module, it will force you to enter something for cost accounting. So I will have to enter a cost center here. So basically, I'll go into this drop down. And for my company code, I'll find out which cost center I want to enter. I'll select this and go back. So this is green, which means from SAP perspective, it is balancing to 0. So it has made it green. I can simulate and see how does my entry look like, but then it is giving me another error. So this says that it is forcing me to enter a value in this field. So this is something I have configured. I want certain fields which I will use downstream in reporting or somewhere to be entered when the data entry is happening, so that later on I don't have any issue. So value date is a field that I'll need from a bank accounting perspective. So which of the data I issued the check. Okay, so I'll enter today. So it is possible for me to make a field mandatory or optional in the configuration, and which is what I've done here. And it is possible to do for other fields also. You can do lot of validations and defined rules based on the requirement. That's why it is very important to find requirement. You can't just go and make all the fields mandatory. Then one invoice is going to take 10 minutes to post. Correct. Then this whole purpose of system goes for a toss. And which is where many people complain about SAP. इसमें ऐसा हो रहा है वैसा हो रहा है, it's taking so much of time. But the question that should be asked is whether your system is configured to meet the business requirement or not. So someone came and he tried all his knowledge on SAP screen, right? So he said, okay, I will make all the field mandatory and let user put all the entry, so that much of data is neither needed for downstream report. So why are you bothering? So that's where designing is very important part. And I'm emphasizing that from the first day of the program, that designing a system is more important than you knowing the configuration. Okay. So again, a small warning, but I know why it is there, because there's a tick to calculate the tax, which I need to select. So SAP is very self-guided. It will not allow you to make mistakes. It will never happen that you have entered something wrong. Something wrong can be only entered if it has not been configured right. So if SAP based on the configuration find that you are doing something wrong, it will stop you or it will give you a warning. So whether you give warning or error can also be defined in the system. Certain error, certain information can be made warning or error based on the requirement. Okay, so I'll post this. Now I got a document number generated. So this document number is unique and it cannot be deleted. You can only reverse it. You can also change this document, but only few fields can be changed, not the amount, not anything else. Just the text field that you can go and change, or I think document date or something like that you can change, but more material figures cannot be changed. To come to display, see the T code here changes because T code for displaying a document is FB03. Now there are many things which have now come up on the screen which I did not enter. Okay. For example, the keys here is 40, 50, whereas I had entered debit and credit. So behind the scene, debit is 40 and credit is 50 in SAP. So that's why SAP is converted into 40 and 50. The account I had entered, and tax code I had entered. The profit center I had not entered. I had just entered cost center. But there's some way, through configuration, it is deriving it because based on my design, I want a specific cost center to go to a specific profit center. And at the same time, I don't want user to spend time in finding out what will be the profit center. So I have designed the system in such a way that it should enter profit center. So it will save time during the time, data entry. If you come to the document header, you'll see that there is a document type SA. Now, in SAP, you can classify all your documents. So what is document classification basically? In real life, in a hard copy kind of scenario, you call different document a different name, like an invoice, a bill, a debit note, credit note, adjustment entry, and so on. Similarly, in SAP, what we do is we create a separate document type, and we enforce certain controls based on that document type, so that system can work efficiently. And you can also find out more information based on different document type. For example, you want to just find out the all vendor invoices for a certain date, then you can use the document type for a vendor invoice. That will be very quick for you. So system one of the very important thing in any good system is the classification. Its ability to classify into different types. So SAP, each and every information you will see being classified, and we'll see going forward also this classification. We had entered a posting date and the period has got derived as one. So this posting date basically means that the I want to account for this transaction in the month of January. And when I run a report, I would like to see this in the month of January, even though the document date is in the previous year. So it doesn't matter. System will always draw out report for financial reporting or for any other reporting based on the posting date, not based on the document date. Of course, you can find out reports based on document date also, but what I'm telling you is that financial statements, when you build a profit and loss account, you will always do it based on the posting date. So that's the purpose of having posting date. So based on posting date, you will SAP determines the period. So period in this case is the month of January. Because my fiscal year for this company code I have defined as Jan to December. But I can also define April to March, because in many companies in India, it is April to March. In USA, they are very weird kind of fiscal years I've seen. Like one is you have a different kind of month like October to September. But then there are times when they start the year not from day one of the year, but they may start from something like first Friday of the month and ends with the last Friday of the month. So which will never be 1 or 30 of the month. So it will not be like a calendar month. It will be a different kind of month. So all that complexities can be configured in SAP. Okay, so we'll see that when we do the configuration, but I'm just giving you some more idea. Now look at this currency. I got this INR because my company code is an Indian company. Okay, but it is part of a global group which is headquartered in USA. Okay, so when I come to display currency, I go to group currency, and you see it converts it into US dollar. Okay, so on a real-time basis, SAP keeps converting based on how we are configured into different currencies. So in FI, you can actually define 8 to 10 different currencies uh, based on your different requirements. So again, it comes to requirement. It's not that by my free will, I will define 10 currencies for a company code because that's what I want to do. It's not that way. A system design is always based on certain requirement. And then SAP also has multiple ledgers. Okay, I have mentioned about regulatory requirements for like Companies Act or Income Tax Act for US GAAP. So one ledger cannot meet all the requirement. For example, take depreciation. The whole definition of LVA, low value asset, is different in Companies Act, Income Tax Act, in US GAAP, and in many different laws. And similarly, for lease, there is different way it is accounted, operating lease and financial lease. So the depreciation amount that will be arrived at will be different. How can you do that in one ledger? We have been using multiple accounts for that in system where we can't do it. No? So we'll have one chart of account in which we'll have one GL account for US GAAP depreciation, one account for Indian GAAP depreciation, one for income tax depreciation, and we'll still try to do it. But what SAP has done is it has provided you different ledgers. So one complete ledger will be for Companies Act, one complete ledger for Income Tax Act, one complete ledger for US GAAP. So the whole process should be so designed that while you are doing one entry, it should also post to other ledgers. So in this case, if you see, I posted to other ledgers also. This is my ledger AB. Even the amount will look all same, don't worry about it. Because this is an expense, and this kind of expense will be same for all the accounting standards. And this one is PwC Ind AS. So I created this PwC for PwC training I did in the December month. So many things, this company code has been for my PwC training. Okay, so one accounting entry, it gives us insight into so much of information and so much of configuration that we required. to do this. Okay, so I compiled all of them here. And we'll do all this configuration to set up a company code and also do the whole accounting in that. So if you start from company code, we'll have to build chart of account groups, FSV and FSG. This tool will be used for field level control, but I want to make it mandatory optional like that. Fiscal year, like Jan to December, April to March kind of posting date will define it so that we can arrive at the fiscal year. The document date, posting period, OB50, posting period we have to define so that we can close. We don't want anyone to post into previous posting period which has been already closed. For example, we are in January, but we have already closed December now, because by 7th, every company would have closed their previous month. Now, if we keep it open, then by mistake, anyone can go and enter into December. That will change the profitability of December, which is already reported. So there is a way you can control that in SAP. Then the generation of the document number, which we saw, the document type, the essay. So we can define that also. Posting key 4050 that we saw. The ledgers, different ledgers like I showed about US GAAP and so on. Then GL account master, the tolerance group. So tolerance group will help you to define some limits on each and employee amount that can be posted. Then retained earnings, all of you know that the balance in the P&L gets transferred to the balance sheet so that the balance sheet will tally. Balance statement versions, based on that you can define different kind of reports or different kind of trial balance or financial statement. Say your financial statement that you require under Companies Act is structured based on Schedule 3 requirement, but your management would like to see it in a slightly different way. Then you define a different FSV. Your cost auditor requires in third way. So, and maybe from some other purpose you want a financial statement, so that you can all define in a financial statement version. Text code, you saw me entering a text code. So that is part of the text configuration. And then the exchange rate. You saw that the INR was converted into US dollar because my headquarters is in US and I have to report it in US dollar. So I configure the system in such a way that it will reduce my time to report to my parent company. So with each and every transaction based on the exchange rate which I have entered in the system, it will convert that into dollar. And so at the month end, I will have a correct conversion of rupee into dollar. So all this, we'll complete in maybe next 2 to 3 sessions where we are going to do all this configuration. So I'll just show you one config that we do, which I'll set up one small company code. Okay, and I'll show you what all information is needed to set that up. So I'll start with enterprise structure because if you come back to this diagram, data structure. So client is already defined. It is already given, when we install the system. Now I have to create a company code below it. So I will go to financial accounting. I will define one company code. Sorry, I don't want to copy it. I want to copying means I can just copy it from any of the company code. Okay. So in case of configuration, there are times when someone else is also working in the same piece of config. Then SAP will not allow multiple user to change because for configuration that the tables are same. So there'll be a lock when multiple user tries to write to the same table. So it says, yeah, you want to display data. OK, let me display it for you. So this is the company code that I entered 0006. Here I defined most important thing is which is my country. So that is India, and currency is INR, and the language is English. So these are 3 important parameters that I have defined. And then when I go to further definition, which is below in the configuration. So all this actually is part of configuration, but I have split into enterprise structure and configuration just to help you understand this better. So financial accounting, global parameters for company code, enter global parameters. So I'll double click and open this. You see, I've defined a chart of account. So chart of account, as you all know, has a list of GL accounts. So I used two GL account. One is for expense and other is for bank. So they are part of this chart of account. What I am doing is I am letting SAP know that I am using this chart of account. Why it is needed? It should not have been needed, right? So, but then a Reliance kind of company, which may have so many subsidiaries across the globe, some company may like to use some other chart of account. Okay, so this is the India company code, but maybe in USA they want some other chart of account. Then it is possible. So what SAP has done is it has provided this kind of flexibility. Again, come back to that block of that Lego toys I talked about. So company code is like one such block we are creating using the four or five important piece of blocks. So one is the chart of account, other was the currency, the language. Okay, and then comes the fiscal year variant. So I've defined a fiscal year variant which is Jan to December. So if you see K4, okay, so it is Jan to December fiscal year, and the field status variant will control the field level input when I enter, like value field when I entered. So all those controls I have compiled into one code called 0010 and assigned it here. And similarly, a posting period variant 1010. So these four pieces, I brought it together to build a company code. There'll be other pieces also will be needed as we go forward. Like, for example, this chart of account will have a GL accounts. So we'll have to create those GL accounts, but GL accounts are master data. So if you come back to this same chart, client was already defined. What I've done is I have to create a company code in the enterprise structure, define further requirement for this company code, like the chart of account, fiscal period, and all that. And then within master data, I'll define the GL account within the chart of account. And then I can do transaction using FB50. So FB50, I don't have to do anything. It is standard provided by SAP. So I have to do this three part to then execute the transaction. But again, depends on my requirement. I want to make certain fields mandatory. Then again, I have to go to configuration and do changes so as to make that field mandatory. There may be certain account I want GST to be applicable. There are certain account on which GST is not applicable. So I have to make changes in the master data so that it does not force me to enter GST all the time. Otherwise, for the non-GST account, I'm again calculating GST. That is not correct. So that all I can do in the master data. So the way SAP works, it's a complete control from the top and controlling the bottom layer, which is the transaction in each and every functional module. And you see this line, it goes up till this enterprise structure part. So company code will control entire FI transactions, the transactions, master data configurations up to company code. So everything is being controlled. And then client will have a control over the company code. So that way, client controls the enterprise structure. And we'll learn more about the client as we go forward. There are a lot of things to be understood about this design. Why this design and what kind of design structure can be built so as to implement in organization like Reliance. So all this is done in the configuration. Okay. So any questions? Have you all understood whatever we have discussed in this session, or is there thought something has just gone above the head? Of course, everything we cannot go into so much of detail in one session. because then the time is a constraint. So in this session, my target was to give you a good overview of all the important things that we are going to do in the coming days.
One doubt.
Yeah, Nagaraju.
Can we take one construction company as a role model for the full session, complete entire?
See, the challenge is that everyone is not from a construction company. So the scenarios may not be applicable. Again, in a construction company, you may require a separate module like a project system, okay, which we are not going to do. So that will, but then we are going to do WBS kind of structure. So that will help understand from a construction perspective. But then construction industry is very different. It requires a very different kind of even the asset accounting implementation, because you have got different stages in which your construction gets completed and paid. Okay, so the scenarios in SAP that we are going to do will actually look at the manufacturing company, but then it can be made applicable to most of the companies. I'm not saying that you can directly do it in the construction. In fact, what scenario is applicable in one construction company cannot be applied to other. For example, Larsen & Toubro is building bridges. Okay, and whereas the JP builder that are building, say, apartments, if you are to do one construction kind of company, that scenario cannot even apply to other. So the whole purpose is how do we learn SAP so that we can do it based on different scenarios. For example, when I learn SAP, I may have learned from one scenario, but when I get into projects, I get into very different projects. I worked with Shell Hong Kong, where I worked on a downstream and upstream oil company, and I had never worked in an oil company. So there were a lot of those scenarios which I had never thought of that it exists. For example, a petrol pump, they will create it like an asset. So a petrol pump, when it has to be, at the end of life, I think there is life of like 20 years, so it will have to be then dismantled. And then there are a lot of environmental requirement that comes up. So all that will have to be captured. So there's a very different way of doing it. Okay, so which you cannot do it in a manufacturing company. But when you are doing it in a 40-hour time frame, you have to learn many things in SAP that you can then apply it. So it does not take much time to ramp up to different needs, provided you understand the basics of SAP. Okay. But I'm not going to be focused on a specific industry because then it will not really serve the purpose of the audience.
Got it. Thank you.
Neither it will be so broad that you cannot apply it to anyone. So it cannot be also like that.
Yeah.
But then how can you make use of it in most of the situation that we can do?
Jayesh, what is the difference between S4 HANA and Business One?
Okay, so Business One is a application that SAP has acquired from an Israeli company called, I think its name was Business One, which was named as SAP Business One later. So SAP, the biggest challenge was that it does not cater to SMEs. And with startups and all the SMEs growing so fast in last 10 years, there was a need that SAP comes up with a product that can compete with Navision and Tally ERP or many other such, Intuit. But then S4 HANA is not built to that kind of a scale.
Yes.
You cannot have one product that can fit everything.
Yes.
So in terms of size, definitely, a small size company, if it has to buy a production planning module or a costing module or a COP module, perhaps it is paying just higher price for what it is buying. Right. So that's why SAP came up with a Business One, which is specifically focused for SAP B1. I worked on that software. It is a very good application, but it does not have capabilities that you will need for a manufacturing company of 300, 400 kind of crore having multiple plants or kind of scenario, or multiple currency kind of scenario. It is meant for small size. Of course, once it scales up, you can move from Business One to S4 HANA.
But its architecture is the same as S4. So if
No.
someone has understands S4, he will be able to understand business one also.
No, it's not same.
It's not same.
It's not same. Because it's a very different product altogether.
Okay.
But remember one thing, that all the ERPs are based on business processes.
Right.
You have to understand business and how it works. How does it gets revenue? How does it produces product? How does it store material? This is what the business about. And then finally, from our purpose, we'll see how can we then account it so we can get to MIS and financial statement. Correct. So when you have a good hold of it, it won't take much time. For example, when one of my clients said that they are using B1 and I had to do one project on it, I asked them, okay, give me a copy of it, and I sat down on it for one day, and I went through all the transactions to see what is there in this and what is not there. And then I went to the tables, I got all the data that I needed.
So do you organize a webinar on business one also?
No, I don't. I just have remained focused on S4 HANA.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope all of you gain from this. Yes, Agnal. Go ahead.
I wanted to understand, like Mr. Nagaraju just said, that example of construction or whatever. This whole training will be some example based for a single company. I mean, like let's take an example, like you started with Reliance Industries. So I'm assuming that this whole training will somewhere map the practical part of this training to Reliance Industries, so that it will become easier for us to also understand when we actually get into the practical side of SAP implementations.
Correct. So taking a complex example is much better when you have to understand SAP. I try to build scenarios. So while I will take Reliance, doesn't mean that I may not be able to mimic Reliance completely.
I may not be able to mimic Reliance completely.
No, anyone, but like the objective being, that we take up some entity, and then this entity becomes the base for the whole training till it gets over in the 3 months, so that at least one company or industry we are able to understand the whole cycle.
Correct.
From end to end.
That's the way it will work.
Organization.
That's the way it will work. That's the way it will work.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Can I speak? This is Rambabu from Doha, Qatar.
Yes, please.
It's a fantastic session. Maybe it's not a question or comment or contribute with your due permission. Basically, SAP or the HANA, when it comes to the at the implementation stage, we call apart from the finance teams, the core plays in with the CAs and CMAs and our professionals. The customer or the client is another side. There is a big gap role of we call functional consultancy solution architect. They call that scope covers understand the client's business process and mapping into the backend. Then of course, if it is another software, we have a separate SQL, the IT team. Whereas here, as you rightly said, once you get the architecture from our functional point of view, how to create chart of accounts and what are the inbuilt, auto generation, GL, other things. I think there is a lot of scope. So in that context, I feel it was very useful, and thank you very much. Not only today, other 2 days session also I attended through EC Connect. So it gives more. I can feel a lot of scopes in terms of Middle East or in Africa or within Indian scenario, talking from compliance point of view, from IFRS or accounting standards and so on. So it is a very wonderful session, and thank you very much, sir, for inviting me today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ram Babu. Thanks for your compliments. Okay, so thanks all of you for participating. I hope this session was useful to all of you. If you got any questions, you can reach out to me. And if you're interested to join this program, please reach out to me and we can take it forward. Thanks a lot of you, and have a great Sunday and enjoy. the weekend with your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah,
Ji.
yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Nagaraju, and bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. And
Bye,
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 sir.
Guru.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hi, sir.
Bye, bye, all of you.
Thank you.
Bye.